got heels on. So, hi, I'm Nicole, and I'm an alcoholic, and it's an honor to be here. My sobriety date is September 9th of 1997. God willing, and if I don't get hit by a bus or blown up by some freak, I will have 16 years in September, and thank you. And I'm emotional tonight. My mom died a month ago. She was constitutionally incapable of being honest with herself. And, some of us die and some of us lived. And I learned in these rooms that you had to walk over the bodies. And the bodies have been family members. And I look around and I see all these women. And Alcoholics Anonymous has given me everything I have in my life, period. My father was killed when I was a baby from this disease, and my mother died at 61 a month ago from this disease. And I look around this room and I have hope. Because as long as I am a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, I have mothers, I have fathers, I have principals, I have everything that I never got as a child. And I'm going to share with you in a general way what it used to be like, what happened, what it's like now. I'm warning you that I do speak about God. God is the solution in Alcoholics Anonymous. What I have today is because I have a power greater than myself. And what I have received in Alcoholics Anonymous, it says in the big book that quite as important is the realization that spiritual solutions will solve all of my problems. Because I have a lot more problems than alcohol. I do. And Bill talks about in the 12 and 12. In the 12 and 12, Bill talks about in double-digit sobriety, he flippantly says, and by now you'll realize you have some more problems than alcohol. So if you're sitting here tonight and alcohol is your only problem, you can look forward to double-digit sobriety. So also, I talk a lot about the big book, and I don't know what it means to be a big book thumper. I mean, I don't know if you beat people on the head with the big book. I don't know what that means. But the big book to me is it's my framework. It's the word. I didn't like my alcohol cut. I didn't like my drugs cut. And I do not like my message of Alcoholics Anonymous cut. Period. I want to know, what are you telling me? And I once heard a long time ago, if what I'm saying does not match with what's in the big book, it can kill you. So thank you, God, that I've had sponsors that don't try to opine on my love, my money. That's not what we do here in Alcoholics Anonymous. We give them the big book, we take them through the steps, and we say, everything you need will be found in that book. And, this fostered dependency in Alcoholics Anonymous on your sponsor and on sponsorship. And what I often say to my girls, they call me, and I say something out of the big book, and they act like it's the Holy Grail. And because I no longer need to have my ego fed like that, I say, I and all my girls know I could get hit by a bus tomorrow. And I'm not serving you if I don't let you know where this came from. And I'm so grateful that we have a blueprint. And so I don't know if that means I'm a big book thumper. I think I'm a good scholar. And in the beginning of the text, it says, this is the basic text. What's a text? A text is meant to be studied. And I don't know if you're like me, but every time you read that book, something new appears. And so I encourage you, if you are new here, or if you're not new, and you don't know what's in the big book, I learned what's in the big book by reading it. And I know that sounds funny, but I joined a big book meeting, and on every Thursday night from 8:30 to 9:30, we read an entire chapter of the first 164 pages. And today, that's not my big book it's not my big book anymore. It's not my home group anymore. My home group is the Unshakable Foundations Women's Group. We formed that about a year ago. Does anybody know where the words unshakable foundation in the literature is? Yeah, do we have some people here? There's a line in my favorite line, one of my favorite lines, because if you said something, I'd be like, that's my favorite line. It says, self-examination, prayer, and meditation. These practices taken separately can provide much relief and comfort. But when logically related and interwoven, they create an unshakable foundation for life. And that's what I have today. And that is why I'm standing up here. It is when I am entrenched in my God, when I'm entrenched with my crew, when I have the we surrounding me, and I am God, like when I have God centered, I am unshakable, period. I am unshakable, and Alcoholics Anonymous, when I choose to live by the principles of AA, I'm exceptional. And that's what happens in these rooms. I'm going to, again, what I said in the beginning, the reason why we tell our stories, there's one reason why people got up and told their stories, and back then they talked about testifying. And it says in the big book, all the stories are in the back of the big book for one reason. The reason why I'm standing up here and the reason why there's stories in the back of the big book is so I can tell you how I found a relationship with God. I'm not standing up here because I want you to hear or see how flat ironed and cute my hair looks tonight or, yay, look how great I've done. I'm here today letting you know that I was a high school dropout, drug addict, alcoholic prostitute who crawled into these rooms when I was 20 years old. I have never had a legal drink. And what you are going to hear is a result of my relationship with a power greater than myself. What you see before you today, 15 years later, is a product of what is given in Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm the youngest of two children. I was raised by my mother. My father was an alcoholic and an addict, and he left my mother when I was 6 months old, and he drove off the side of a mountain drunk when he was 32 years old, and I was 3 years old. I was raised by my mother. My mother, my whole life, was an addict in one form or another. I'm the adult child of a drug addict. It cuts really deep. I wake up 6 out of 7 days. I am 36 years old, and I still wake up, and my eyes shoot open, and my first thought is, I'm scared. I'm scared. And then I go, okay, well, I have tools. I can go pray. I can go pet my dog. I get some coffee, and I'll start my day. And then I'm like, oh, okay, I'm okay. But as a result of growing up in a home where my mother shot cocaine in front of me, and she sold my bed for crack, and I would go visit her in jail, and I would be the one who lived in everyone else's home, and I don't know if any of you carry that shame, but I was the one, Mom, can Nicole sleep over? Her mom's in jail. I don't know if any of you carry that shame as well, but that stuff cut really deep for me, and that's the stuff that I worked out in double-digit sobriety. But as a young girl, I was obsessed with my mother. Where's Mom? Where's Mom? Where's she going? Where's she going? Where's she going? Where's she going? And I had a little Yorkie who just passed away a year ago, and I don't know if any of you have dogs where your dog's like, where's she going? Where's she going? Where's she going? Is she grabbing her shoes? Is she getting her shoes? Is she getting her shoes? That's how I was with my mom. Where's Mama going? Where's Mama going? Is she leaving? Is she leaving? Is she going to come back? And Bill talks about in the Alcoholics Anonymous text, he said, years of living with an alcoholic is sure to make a child neurotic. And that's what I became. I became neurotic. And I bit my fingernails till they bled, and I twirled my hair, and I always wondered where she was. And as a young child, I used a lot of things to escape before my first drink. I read as much as I could, and I would escape in my books, and I would travel to, Narnia and The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and all of Judy Blume, and I would escape. And I wanted to be anywhere but here. Because here was always so painful and so scary. And I had an older sister, God bless her. I was talking about how I terrorized her. She doesn't have this thing. Like, I'll call her up and, I'm in AA now 15 years, and I'll be like, oh, I just went to a meeting, I feel better. And she'll be like, oh, what'd you hear in a meeting? And I'm like, oh, they talked about first things first, so I feel so much better. She's like, what do you mean? Like, that's a concept to you? Like, what else would be first other than first? She doesn't have this thing. She just doesn't have this thing. And I've got this thing. She has the same crackhead mom, but she doesn't have this thing. And so I kind of terrorized her as a child. I was telling my friends today that she got caught, my grandparents, she got caught stealing a gumball when she was like 8 or 9. And I blackmailed her for 3 years. Totally. I blackmailed her. I was like, you will read me a story. And that's my alcoholism. And my mother was married 7 times, God bless her. 7. And everyone's like, oh, she must have loved marrying rich men. No, she married poor men. So there was never any money. Like, when she just died, it cost me a lot of money. So, like, everyone's like, my mom's dying, I have to deal with the inheritance. I'm like, it cost me money. It's funny, because for God's sake, you gotta laugh about some of it, right? So I terrorized my sister, and my mother was married 7 times, and all these men in and out of my house, and my grandparents were not addicts. They were not drug and alcohol addicts. My grandfather was a sex addict. So I treat those issues too. I treat a lot of things at 15 years of sobriety, because what sober means to me, I've raised the bar in 15 years. I look at the food, I look at the money, I look at the sex, I look at the love. For years in this program, I used people like drugs, and I tried to control them. And the great obsession of that is, if you do something different, I'll be okay. The great obsession. And I learned all that in my childhood. In addition to reading to escape, I was also, as you can tell, I have an abundance of energy. My mom put me in a sport, and I was a national level gymnast. I don't know if we have any other athletes in the house. But I would suit up and show up, and I'd put my little leotard on, and I would go to the gym, and I'd work till my hands would be bleeding, and I would work. And just to get this much attention. Because I just wanted someone to look at me my whole life. And I trained my little heart out. And I became a little star. And I became the achiever. And I became addicted to achievement. And if my mom could look at me for 3 minutes a day doing a handstand, then I felt better. And at 15, I think it was 15 and a half, around there, I took my first drink, and it was Cisco and Boone's Farm. We have other, I got a high five. I got a fist. Somebody just fisted me, so we have some classy drinkers here too. And my first drink felt like this. I always say this when anybody hears me speak, because it is absolutely my truth. Everything went quiet, and it sounded like this. And it went quiet, and it went numb, and it felt warm. And I didn't care if she was dead, and I didn't care if you knew, and I didn't care anymore. Because I had something that made it feel better. My whole life it hurt so bad, and I was so lost, and I was so scared. And I had nothing to ever make it feel better. And alcohol made it feel better for a while. And from 15 to 20, I ingested as much alcohol and drugs as I possibly could. And I am a high school dropout. I was in honors classes. I became a high school dropout. I was a national level gymnast. All of my teammates went on to get full NCAA rides. They're all in the Hall of Fame at the University of Florida and everywhere else. And I sat on my couch and I drank myself to death. I have never had a legal drink. No one has ever seen my picture and my name on an ID whilst purchasing something. It was always someone else's picture. Never had a legal drink. I now see kids who are 20 years old, and I go, they're babies. Babies. And the things that I did, I once heard an amazing speaker say, alcohol gave them the wings to fly and then took the sky. And that was it. It was dark. It was sordid. I cannot relate to. I've never gone out and had a glass of wine. I drank until vomit was coming out of my nose, splashing in my hair on the floor. It was sick and twisted and used solely to not feel. That is why I drank. I liked the effect produced by alcohol, and that effect was I wanted to be numb. I did not want to feel because I could not process what was going on in my life. I had no other tools other than alcohol. And then that great thing that would take all the pain away, something twists, and then it starts causing you more problems than you ever had. And I started going to jail, and I started working at massage parlors, and I started doing things that I hated myself for. And I was a liar, a cheat, a whore, a thief, and I hated myself. I was about 25 pounds lighter than I am now. I had everything pierced. I wore a dog chain around my neck because that is how I felt about myself. I was bruised from head to toe. You know, when you're real drunk and you eat a lot of pills and you fall down a lot and you're covered in bruises. And I remember, and the dark circles would be hanging down my face, and I'd look in the mirror. And I remember thinking, my outsides look like my insides. And during that period, my mom had gone to jail one more time. And that trip, we got a call, and we were told that she had contracted HIV. And my uncle, who was one of the biggest gay porn stars who ever lived. So you have these two, my mother's parents, my mother is Jewish, and they lived on the ocean in Palm Beach. And then, you know, when she would go to jail, we would live with my grandparents, and then they would send us back after she got out of jail, and they'd say, you got to go live with your mom because you are her family. And we'd call in about, 3 weeks and say, Mom didn't come home tonight. And then we'd have nowhere to live. And that happened over and over and over. And my grandparents, God bless them, they've been dead for a long time. They'd go, if your kids just behave, your mother wouldn't smoke crack. And we'd get these insane messages. But like my grandma's Jewish from Boston, like, you kids, she'll stop smoking the crack. And we're like, oh my God, this is insane. But so my mother contracted HIV. My uncle, the gay porn star that year, died of AIDS. So everywhere around me, my whole family was perishing and dying. And I just sunk deeper and deeper. Been to jail twice, DUI possession charges twice, lost my license for 2 years, in and out. And I don't know if any of you can relate to me, but for years, if you have never been arrested, you can do anything. Like, you can drive like naked, and like, I was like snorting things off the console and got pulled over and didn't go to jail. But like, once you go to jail, you don't stop going to jail. Period. Like, I'd be like, oh, how'd you know it was me? Like, it's unbelievable how, like, when the consequences start, they don't stop. So if you're just teetering on the verge of, like, you've been to jail and you're going to pop into AA, like, stop now. Like, stop while you have the teeth you have remaining. Stop while, like, honestly, it just gets worse. So after my mother was first diagnosed with HIV, she got sober and she went to this place called Gratitude House. And during that period, my mother was the hand of Alcoholics Anonymous that reached off the floor. Literally, I was 300 miles away from where I was living. I was naked, covered in cigarette burns, and somebody called my mom and said, Nicole's going to die this weekend. You got to come get her. She's going to die. And I woke up on the floor with my mother, and I called the stepfathers by their numbers. So number 6 was there. And my mom, when she was sober, like, you didn't mess with Lynn. Her name was Lynn Shahady, and I called her the real Slim Shahady because she was anorexic too. Like, homegirl did not eat, but was like the Terminator. So I woke up and Slim was standing over me, and she's like, get up, we're going. And she marched me right to Carb Detox, which is a detox facility. And from there, I went to the same treatment center as she was at. It's Gratitude House. I stayed there. It's a treatment center for indigent women. It's not like, do you have insurance? It's like, no, I was a hooker. Like, they don't insure for that. Like, maybe Obamacare one day will cover that, but like, well, not now. So I didn't have insurance. Like, I was homeless. I had nothing. I lived somewhere, but like there was no money coming from places. Like, so I went to this treatment center, and I was 20 years old, and I stayed there for 4.5 months, and I started to hear the message of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I started to feel better. I just wanted to feel better. I was tired at 15. I was tired at 20. I was watching people wither away and die of AIDS in the 90s. Like, I was tired. You know, my grandma, like, I need a nitroglycerin, your mother's in jail. Like, it was just enough. It was enough. I was tired. And in Gratitude House, when you walk in, there's a sign, and it says, here there is hope. I was like, hope? I want to be hopeful. I haven't had hope in so long. My alcoholism took my hope. My mom's disease took my hope. Like, I've been hopeless for a really long time. And this soul, you give me this much hope, and I can go forever, man. You give me this much. You give me a mustard seed, and I just beam, and I perk up. God has given me a soul that just radiates with light. And my soul has come alive in Alcoholics Anonymous. And, they would say things like, you're too young to get sober and all these things. And like, I spilled more than you drank. And I was like, well, maybe you didn't spill so much alcohol, you would have gotten sober sooner. Like, who spills their booze? Like, hold on to that. You don't spill booze. Like, none of it was like, I'm not, impressed with you. Like, oh, you're old and like you've been to jail 20 times. Congratulations. Like, that's, so I would get heckled. I'm the only one sober still. And I would hear things, and are there treatment center, anybody in treatment here or anything, institutions? Well, there could be some people if you're hiding. But what happened to me is I started getting honest. And I started to realize that the old me was a liar. So if there was going to be a new me, then she would do the opposite, and she would be honest. And then I would take chances, and I would be honest, and I would start to feel better about myself, and I'd go, oh, I can do this different, and I can get something different than what I've always gotten. And they said things in, hold on one second. Ooh, a little warm up here. I brought my makeup artist, so if I look like a transvestite, Trudy has a heavy bronzer hand. I'm usually not the color of an Oompa Loompa, but little bronzed over here. So I just felt like Andrew Dice Clay. I was like, anyway. So they said to me, like, it's horrible. You had a horrific childhood. It's horrible. It was atrocious and it's horrific, but it's over. It's over. Like, you'll have time to ferret that stuff out, but right now it's done. Boom. This is the line of demarcation. Everything that happened before this line, done. Everything from this line forward, it's on you and your God and the decisions you make, period. And I was like, all right, fair enough. Let's do this thing. And I started to gain hope, and I started to go to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I started to go to AA at 20 years old, and I went to young people's meetings, and we went to see the Chili Peppers, and we went to concerts, and we stayed sober. And in AA, it talks about you need a sufficient substitute. Alcohol, I woke up at 10 minutes to 1 every day, just before Days of Our Lives. 10 minutes to 1. I'd start drinking and doing whatever I need to do, and all day until I passed out that night, and I did it again. So I had every waking moment was consumed by alcohol in my life. So if it says you need a sufficient substitute, I needed every hour of my life dictated by Alcoholics Anonymous. So I started going to community college. Love Chris Rock. Not a day goes by I don't mention Chris Rock. He says, community college, here's $10. Let me get my learn on. And you know what? I went and I was like, I'm a high school dropout. And I tested into like math. I like counted on my toes. They're like, you're going to be here a while. I'm like, okay. I mean, I'll go to meetings and, I had like an abacus. I was like, 1, 2. I was like, you know what do I have better to do than go to community college, work a part-time job, and go to Alcoholics Anonymous? Sounds like a fine life to me. And that's what I did. And that's what I did for a really long time. I've always had a sponsor. I've worked the steps. I've worked the steps repeatedly, numerously, on a million different issues. Sometimes my 6 and 7, and follow me here, sometimes 6 and 7 turn into 1 somewhere else. When I cannot have these defects of character humbly removed and they destroy my life, I go somewhere where it's number 1 and I have a whole fellowship to support me. And that's the Alcoholics Anonymous I grew up in, period. You treat what is going to kill you first. And if I do not treat my alcoholism, I can treat nothing. Because if I am drunk, I am not working on my inner child. My inner child will be drunk. Period. I like to say period a lot. I find that it. Period. Seriously, when you're talking and you throw out a period, people listen to that. So I was blessed with a Cuban sponsor whose father was a former dictator, not kidding. And I was scared of her, and I needed that. I needed to be scared of my sponsor for the first 8 years. I responded to fear. I responded to being told what to do. I needed that. It made me feel safe. It kept me alive. And I remember going to from when I graduated from community college, I also like to say I'm 15 years without a cigarette. What my mother inevitably died from was smoking. My mother had HIV, hepatitis B, hepatitis C, and COPD. My mother was shooting heroin with HIV up till 2 years ago. What killed her was cigarettes. She died because she could not breathe and she suffocated and died, period. And when the last 2 weeks before I saw her, she was in hospice, she was about 85 pounds. She was clawing to the door to go have a cigarette. So I'm proud to say that I'm 15 years without a cigarette. I'm very proud to say that. I was addicted to Little Debbie snack cakes for a while after I was living with a man at the time and we were studying and I'd open my book and there'd be crumbs from them and I'd be like this, did you eat the snack cakes? He's like, baby, I didn't touch the snack cakes, I swear. And I'd wear this like house coat and I got kind of fat. It was like, you know what? The weight came off and I have clear lungs. And I've had to treat that too. I also have a disease that tells me you need to lose 10 pounds no matter how big I am. And I treat that too. That one's not easy. And so this Cuban sponsor, I called her up and I graduated community college and I was so proud and all of my AA crew was there and I had my tassels and my little hat. And I walked across the stage and I finished something. I had a degree. I had a piece of paper that told me I achieved something. And I remember I was going to big girl school. I was going to FAU, and I was going to get my bachelor's. And I called up Marta, and I said, I'm going to big girl school now. I got to kick it down a notch with all these meetings and blah, 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 blah. And she said, let me tell you something right now. You have one purpose. It's to stay sober and help another alcoholic to achieve sobriety. I'm not impressed by your dreams. God doesn't care what you want to be. Plumbers serve God. Anybody, whatever. You want to be an astronaut? That's great. but suit up, show up, because I'm not burying you because you had a dream. She's like, that's not the deal. You know, on September 9th of 1997, you were given your primary purpose. You can do whatever you want, and it's really insignificant. But you stick out your hand to somebody in Alcoholics Anonymous, you did your purpose for the day. I don't care how you make your living. God doesn't really care how you make your living. And I'm so grateful. She wasn't like, oh, that's so exciting. You want to go be a lawyer. Like, clearly God needed you to be a lawyer. He needs another lawyer. Like, don't go to AA, go to law school. She did not say that. She did not say that. And I did go to law school, and I graduated law school, and I went and, you know, on a 29-page application, I had divulged to the Florida Board of Bar Examiners that I am a drug addict. And at that time, I had 7-8 years of sobriety. And I said, this is my sponsor's name. I take a meeting every month into detox, and I have a home group and everything. And I told them that I was arrested, and I told them I was in treatment, and I told them that I suffered from anxiety. And for 7 years, when I signed a promissory note, and I financed every single credit of my 7 years of college, and every year that got me to my doctorate degree, and I signed, and now I owe Sally Mae $208,000. After I talk, it'll be 2009, because that bitch charges lots of interest. Sorry about my language, I'm still working on it. AA is not charm school, I'm trying. But, so I knew that the Florida Board of Bar Examiners could say, no thanks. We're not going to entrust, you know. Anybody here ever put in a lot of cash to your lawyer's, trust account? You know, I could go to Vegas one night with that. You know, and I said, I will do the footwork. I will stay sober. I will work with my sponsees. And if God wants me to be an attorney, I will be an attorney. And in July of 2004, after I went to, in Tampa every year on the last Tuesday and Wednesday of July and February, and I was in July, they're scared little JD, law degree recipients who sit in a room, and I sat in a room with 3,000 other people, and I was looking around, and they said, welcome to the 2004 summer administration of the Florida Bar Exam. And I just started crying. And in that moment, it wasn't about if I passed the test. It was, look at my life. Look what AA has given me. How did this happen to me? How did I go from watching my mom shoot cocaine to, working at massage parlors and drinking and ending up in jail? How am I here? How am I sober? How am I sitting here with a t-shirt that says faith in Old English letters? Because I wanted, when people looked at me, I wanted my shirt to remind them to have faith. And I got tearful, and I was like, let's do this. And I ripped open my test, and I took the test, and I can't remember how long, I don't know, a month or two later, I got the scores back, and I hit the trifecta. I cleared all portions, the multi-state Florida, and I was cleared by the Florida Supreme Court. They said I was fit moral character. And I am a fit moral character because of Alcoholics Anonymous. And so my dream came true. I became a lawyer. And then the bottom fell out of my sobriety. Because for 7 years, I had this thing, when I'm a lawyer, everything's gonna, like, unicorns are gonna frolic across the sky. And what I didn't know is what I was really saying to myself is, when I'm a lawyer, I won't be scared anymore. I won't be scared when I'm a lawyer. And what happened was, there was no test anymore. I was the lawyer. And emotionally, it was the dark nights of the soul for me. And at 8 years of sobriety, I went to work at a law firm, and my married boss started hitting on me. And I did not know how to walk away. And my voice said, you'll never get another job. And then the attention started to feel so good. And I started to feel special to someone. And I almost died in a love addiction. And I started sleeping with my married boss. And then he left his wife. And he started abusing me. And I was 10 years sober. And I was a circuit speaker. And I had spoken in the other side of the world. And I was the girl who could go speak and then not sleep with a married man and not sleep with a man who called me a whore and would throw beer bottles at my head. I couldn't stop, and I felt like a fraud. And I went to my sponsor and I said, I can't go to AA anymore. I'm a fraud. And she said, that is your alcoholism, and it'll get you drunk. And I'll tell you this, if you stopped going to AA, if you had an affair, no one would be there. So here I was, humbled with my heart in my hand. I'm the AA poster child. I am the comeback kid. Everyone knows Nicole. And here I am, couldn't show my head in an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. I'd become a mistress. And I went away to treatment for codependency, and I got a lot of outside help, and I realized that I was recreating my childhood. And I walked through a lot of hard pain. And I remember going to treatment, and they reenacted my childhood. And they put my mom in a chair with props and a needle in her arm, and I kept going like this. I kept going, and they'd go, look where you came from. Feel it, get it out, know you deserve more. And I walked through that, and that was the hardest thing I ever had to do. Leaving that relationship almost killed me. And I decided I was turning my life around, and I was working for a crook, and I said, I'm leaving. And I'd rather go serve sushi than compromise my principles. He double billed, so you people using a lawyer, watch your bills. Send it to me, I'll review it. I'll be like, he's full of shit. So marched over to the bank, and I said, Charles, why don't you give me 25 grand? I'm going to start my own firm. And he was like, which files are you taking with you? I'm not taking anything from that man. I don't want nothing from him. You know, we answer to something else, and my money comes from God. And if your money comes from a scumbag boss, it's a scary thing. And I've learned in this room that my money comes from God, period. Because I've learned that you cannot serve two masters. And I've served other masters and sober. And it's the most painful thing ever because it owns you. So I coerced this idiot to give me $25,000. And 5 years later, I had my own law firm in Trump Plaza. I have another attorney, my sponsee, who I sponsored for 3 years, and then I decided she was far too brilliant and smart and amazing. And I told her to come, and I gave her a full-time job, and she now runs my firm. And I try to live with honesty and integrity in my law firm. My yeses mean yes, and my nos mean no. And it's wonderful to have integrity and to be able to be my own boss. And one of the patriarchs in Alcoholics Anonymous in South Florida, I was like, Harry, I started my own firm. And he goes, oh, you realized you were unemployable. And I was like, basically, big fat mouth. And a month after starting my own firm and getting a restraining order against Hannibal Lecter, he's my biggest gift. I bless him daily. Honest to God, I wish him nothing but joy and peace. And that's a gift too. I have forgiveness. Forgiveness is the biggest gift ever to ourselves. And I was a far better daughter than my mother ever was a mother. And when she died, Sarah and I, my best friend, we went to the hospital. And I knew it was it. And I put on meditation music. And I wrapped her in a talit, which is a Jewish shawl, and I put pictures up of all the family, and I put little like angels, and she was like 60 pounds hunched over, and I went and bought all these flowers and these stuffed animals, and I put an elephant's trunk on her to watch over her, and I just told her she was the best mom, and I was so grateful she was mine, and I just told her how much I love her, and I said, you can go, Mama. You can go be with God. You don't have to suffer anymore, and I'm going to be okay. And my mom left, and I got to stand next to her and love her. The woman who left me and abandoned me and beat me, and, I got nothing but love in my heart for my mother, and that's because of the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. I love her with all my heart. There's nothing left but love. And I'm going to wrap up with about 5 years ago, after I got the restraining order and opened my own firm, I started to, my legs felt weird. Like, they just felt heavy, and I always used to wear these, like, hooker heels. I'm short, I'm 5'2", so it made me feel like I had more stature. You feel me, ladies, when you wear heels, you're like, ooh, I'm tall and lean, and this gets shorter, and this gets in more. Yeah, it's hot in here, girl. I think this is all polyester. I'm dying over here. Woo, not breathing. So my legs felt heavy, and at that point, part of my recovery and my journey is I was abusing my body. And I wasn't eating, and I was drinking about 45 energy drinks a day. And what that's called is self-abuse. I've learned that. I learned if I don't nourish my body and I harm my body, then I'm abusing myself. And I didn't know that, and I was anorexic. I would eat a Zone bar in the morning. I'd have some peanut butter and crackers and some cottage cheese at night. And if somebody wanted to give me a big meal, I was scared I was going to get fat. And that was in sobriety. And I was a 00. I was emaciated. And I thought I could have lost a few pounds. And I couldn't see it. I couldn't see it at all. And my legs felt heavy, and I was like, oh, I probably should start eating a vegetable or two. Maybe I have rickets. I don't know. Maybe I need vitamins. I never thought that anything could be wrong with me. I was the iron woman. Nothing's wrong with me. And I went about a month, and it started to get really bad, and I started to fall down. And at this point, my mother was out of her mind on drugs. And my sister lives in Gainesville with 3 beautiful girls now, and I don't have a husband. Thank you, God, that I did not marry any of them. Thank you. But single. And it was starting to get really bad, my legs. And when I would crack my neck, my body would go numb. And I was like, okay, this is a problem. This is a problem. We got a problem here. And so I went and got an MRI, and the doctor told me that you have a 7-inch tumor from your spinal cord to C7. And you basically, like, it's a 3% chance of living. And I remember coming home. I remember telling all my best friends that I had fatal cancer. And I called my sponsor, and she was like, we need to go to a meeting. I was like, girl, let's go to a meeting. Woo! There is nothing a meeting can't. So we went to a meeting. We came up with a plan. And I didn't do it alone. And the next day, my best friend, since I was a child, got me in the car with my MRI tapes and one of my other best friends. And we drove around to hospitals to see who could help me. And we went and drove an hour south. And I walked into the ER, and I handed them my scans, and I was emaciated, and I was limping. And they said, why are you here? And I said, I was told I had spinal cord cancer. And they admit me, and they got me ready for pre-op. The neurosurgeon was going to slice me open. My sister was flying in, and he walks in, and he says, I'm not convinced. He goes, this isn't a tumor. This is inflammation in your spinal cord. And for 365 days after that, I was slowly going paralyzed, and no one knew why. I had 35 MRIs. To this date, I've had about 15 rounds of chemotherapy. I have a rare disease 1 in 10 million people have, and my immune system eats my spinal cord. And so today I live on chemotherapy. I just had a round about a month ago. And so I've adjusted to that. And nothing's worse than my alcoholism. This thing is not, I'm like, Like, they're like, one day you're going to need a seeing eye dog. I'm like, I'm going to get a seeing eye midget, first of all. I'm not getting a dog. Like, I don't speak dog. It's like, make a left. It's like, I mean, it's probably hard to find work if you're a midget. So I'm like, thinking about all these things, and it's like, what came to me was this. These doctors were like, you're going to go paralyzed. You're going to go blind. And I would be like, and then I would go home and go like this. You know what? Today I can see. Today I can walk. And you know what? God will give me always what I need today. And if I wake up one day and I can't see, I'm going to deal with it that day. Today is not a day to be like, what would it be like to be blind? It's like, I'm not going there. I am not going there. So I keep that disease in the day. I handle my business. I've flown around the country to find the top doctors. I am my own advocate. Because you say MD, you almost killed me. My sobriety and my life, they're in my pocket, period. No one's responsible for that stuff but me. Today I manage my disease. I live happily, joyous, and free. I suit up, I show up, and I try with all my heart and soul to carry the message. So I hope I did tonight. Thanks.